So this is the 2017 Honor Orchestra video for Hiawatha, for the viola part. So I'm going to go ahead and play it straight down, and then I'll break it down measure by measure so you have something to practice with. So with this piece, a lot of the viola part and many viola parts generally are accompaniment or harmony parts. So the good majority of the piece has that same rhythmic pattern all the way through, which is quarter, eighth, eighth, quarter, eighth, eighth, right? So make sure when we approach that, that rhythm that we're always breaking up the bow between long quarter notes and short eighth notes. And then the style of the bow stroke should be détaché. So having a good space between the bow strokes, so it's not smooth and connected, but it will still have a clean beginning and a clean ending. So when we play, we want to make sure that it's very articulate. We don't want it to be legato. Because when we put it all together with 100 other kids, it's going to sound very sloppy if we don't make it articulate. So the other thing we should also be concerned about is making sure that we have good bow divisions. So for the quarter note, we want to use our entire bow. With the eighth notes, we want to use small bows, so either at the tip or at the frog. So we'll alternate. Down, tip, tip, up, frog, frog, down, tip, tip, up, frog, frog. Right? So be aware of your bow divisions. Once you work that out and you get a good détaché stroke, then it really becomes pretty easy to put much of this together. Just be careful when you get to measure 10 that it does jump down to F, so your third finger on the C string. When you do that, I would highly recommend that you keep your fingers down. So you pretty much have A going the entire time on the G string. So keep your first finger down on the G string for A, and then take your third finger across. So the first finger doesn't move. Basically, only your third finger and your second finger could go to the C string. but your first finger should stay on A. That way your A stays in tune, and then you only have to worry about setting your third finger just for the F. So basically, you'll have right? That's probably the trickiest thing in the first 12 measures. Once you get to measure 12, you have the tune here. So make sure you keep that same détaché stroke. And then really dig in because you have the tune. You can play this out a lot more. And it's the C string. How often do you get to play on the C string? I mean, come on. So dig in. Right? And really, when you get to that bow lift, you are going to have to cheat the half note. The half note's going to get 2 beats, but in this sense, you have to give it a little bit less than 2. So I actually give it just 1 full beat and then lift on that second beat so that you can prepare for the next down bow, right? So you have 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And make sure when you do that, that you really let the viola just ring through. I should address a couple things. So go back to measure 12. When you go from D, A, you want to have your first finger basically blocked on both strings. So if you're on the C string, you want to make sure that your first finger is set on both the C string and the G string, which can be a bit tough if you have a big viola and you have small fingers, which, you know, when we're kids, is kind of expected, small fingers. So that's why we have smaller violas. If your viola is a little bit too big, you might have to adjust or slide your finger. But really make sure that the easiest thing to do is set your finger right in the middle of both strings and then push down on both. And that way you don't have to hop or lift the first finger. It basically just sits on both strings. So you have... So your first finger is taking care of both the D and the A. And that comes back again at measure 14, right? And then at 17, same thing, you're going from the A to the D. So you want to set your first finger on both notes. And that pretty much takes care of that melody. So I know the C string we don't really play all too much on, so we might not feel that comfortable, but it just takes a little bit of practice, plus it's probably the coolest part for the violas and the cellos to take that melody and play it on the C string. So it's something definitely you want to practice. Then we get to measure 20. Measure 20 is piano, and we still keep that same détaché stroke, and you notice the staccato is here. The only thing I would say to achieve that piano, you just have to think of a lighter bow. So make sure you're not pushing down or pushing into the string, and really just let the bow glide over the string, keeping a very light bow. And then make sure you feel a full half note at the end before you move on. So when you get to measure 22, it doesn't jump up in dynamic. That might have been a little misleading of what I played right now, but it is legato, and the entire orchestra is playing this legato section. It's absolutely gorgeous, even though the viola part is just playing simple pitches here and there. So is the whole orchestra, and we have this chorale feeling going on. So it's absolutely wonderful to get that rich, sonorous tone. So make sure that you're trying to add in some vibrato. I'll try and make another video just to address vibrato, but that's a whole nother skill set. But right now I won't go too far into it, but this would be the place to really open up and let that vibrato go. So be careful of low twos, right? You have your F natural on the D string. Open G, if you are doing your vibrato, you know, it's kind of silly to go from F natural on the D string to your fourth finger on the C string, which is one of the only ways to vibrate or it is one of two ways to vibrate that pitch, but you can also vibrate the open string. So if you played open G with your third finger on the D string G, not to play the D string, but you can add vibrato, and just the fact that you're adding some sort of vibration to the instrument is going to cause it to vibrate the open string. It's not as apparent as, say, your fourth finger, but it's more than nothing. So I would definitely add it in. Open G is perfectly fine. If you want to get to your fourth finger on the C string and open up that vibrato, go for it. So 22. A bit tricky is counting, right? So make sure when you feel the half note, you're giving 2 beats each, and when you feel those whole notes that you're really counting all the way through 4 beats until the next note. Same thing at 25 to 26, block that first finger so it's on the C string and the G string, and that basically takes you through the entire piece. So that, not the entire piece, but at least this legato section. 30 is still legato, but you come up with more of the theme here, and it moves a little bit faster. So you have quarter notes instead of half notes, so plenty of bow. To the theme, same theme as the beginning with long, short, short. Some of the things you should be careful of when doing this is when you get to measure 30, and actually anytime you have those low twos, which I believe 22 is the first time we get to those, you need to make sure that the low two is touching that first finger really close. And then anytime you have 1 and 2 touching, you need to make sure you stretch that third finger just a little bit more. It feels like you're stretching more, but really you're just stretching enough to get that third finger up to where it belongs. So always be careful. You know, you want your pitch to be right on. So try and make sure anytime you do those low twos that you're stretching your third finger. All right, and then when we get to measure 37, it's the same thing as the beginning. You don't have to worry so much about anything different. Long, short, short. Just be careful when you get to measure 42, you come back down to the F, and then basically on the last line you're finishing out the theme, and then you get to measure 47 where you have those eighth notes. So make sure you're nice and short on all the eighth notes, very clean, very articulate. Don't let it get legato. We want it to be very, very dry. And retake on that fourth beat so you're ready to put in your accents and measure 48. So those accents, oops, sorry. You're going to have a little bit more weight with your first finger. Every time you put an accent, you should be putting more weight on that first finger so it bites down. And then you just bow like normal, but you're adding in weight at the beginning of the bow stroke. So whether it's a down bow, you add the weight, and then it's a normal bow stroke, and then weight on the up bow, so you can pull that accent. So here. Last one, still vibrate through as it rings so that it has a little bit of warmth. So that's Hiawatha for the 2017 Honor Orchestra for Santa Ana Unified School District. It's actually not terribly difficult. It's going to be a great opener. So just work on it carefully, and then I wish you guys the best of luck.